Navigating the cultural and daily life differences when first coming to Japan can be a full-time job in itself. That's especially true when you first arrive here. I've lived here for some time now, and I can definitely say that there's a definitive list of things that I'm constantly thinking, if only I'd known that before I arrived. So with that in mind, here is my top 10 list of things that I wish I'd known before coming to Japan. Let's go.
The hell does that mean?
That means whatever the hell you want it to mean.
What could be more fundamental to navigating everyday life in Japan than understanding a little bit of the Japanese language? So the phrase that I want to teach you today is daijobu. Daijobu. It means yes, no, is it okay, and it's okay. It's called a pretender phrase because you can know it and pretend like you know Japanese better than you actually do. It's incredibly versatile. So by learning this one phrase, you've already equipped yourself for 100 different situations that you're going to run into when you first arrive to Japan. So learn daijobu, learn it well, and you're already off to the races. That's number one.
Dirty hoe. I'm sorry, baby, I love you.
Medical masks. You know the ones that I'm talking about? They're just those white masks that you see a lot of people in Eastern countries wearing. Well, when I first came to Japan, I didn't understand the usage of these masks, and I had always thought that when someone was wearing one of these masks, it meant that they were protecting themselves from the rest of the world, and it kind of gave me this bad feeling, like the people who wore these were giving the impression like I was somehow dirty and unclean. When in actual reality, I found out since I moved here that when Japanese people and any Eastern people, or most people, are wearing these, they're doing it because they have a cold. The culture in Japan is that when you have a cold, of course you would wear a mask so you would be considerate of other people. And that totally changes the understanding of the situation, where in one, it kind of put me at odds with this person because I had this impression they thought I was dirty. In actual reality, they're being really, really polite, and it's kind of a wonderful thing that people are wearing these and not spreading their germs around. So with that understanding, hopefully you can get a better perspective of the people who you're going to be interacting with when you live here. That's number two.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Hand gestures and body language. Now, the Japanese have a lot of variations on these, but there's one that I want to focus on primarily today because I think it's responsible for a lot of the initial confusion when people first arrive. And that has to do with the gesture requesting somebody to approach. So in the UK, many other places in the world, and in North America, if you want somebody to approach you, you would do something like this, right? But here in Japan, it's the complete opposite. So if somebody in Japan wants you to approach them here, they'll do a gesture like this, which to my mind is telling me to go away, and for me resulted in a lot of awkward situations and standoffs where I had the impression they wanted me to approach, but it seemed like they were telling me to go away at the same time. The reason for this is that this gesture in Japan is done to animals to request them to approach, and for all the different levels of politeness here in Japan, you would never use the same gestures for an animal that you would use for a human being. So if you see somebody doing this, they're your friend, they're your ally, they want you to approach and avoid the confusion that I had. That's number three.
Am I supposed to conduct with my penis?
Next up is a little bit of shopping etiquette. It's not like a major faux pas if you got this wrong, but it is good to understand it. So when you go to any shopping experience in Japan, you're gonna hear this phrase, "Irashaimase." And when I was in Canada, back home, if ever anybody acknowledged me when I came into a store, that meant that I should acknowledge them back. Usually they're saying, "Hello, how are you doing?" and you respond. But here in Japan, this is more a formality, and there's no expectation that you would respond to them saying "irashaimase." So my inclination was to say, "Oh, hello," when I first arrived, but very soon I realized that not many people were actually doing that. It's just a formality. You don't need to respond. So save yourself a little breath, blend in with the natives, and say hello if you want to, but don't feel any sort of obligation when you hear this when you're entering the stores. That's number four. Let's talk about the season to avoid in Japan, and that is summer. I didn't know this before I came. I knew that Japan has 4 different seasons. It's got fall, it's got winter, it's got spring, it's got summer. But I didn't know just how bad the summer is, especially comparative to the blissful lack of humidity that I have back in Canada on the West Coast. The humidity here is insufferable. And you should know that whether you're gonna live here and sort of the clothes that you're gonna bring, or if you're planning a vacation that you're gonna come to Japan. Japan has beautiful seasons, don't get me wrong. Visit in spring for the sakura, the cherry blossoms. Come in fall, the leaves are beautiful. Come for a snowboard trip in winter. But at all costs, avoid the horrible humid monstrosity that is the Japanese summer. If only I'd known. That's number 5.
What is this?
A center for ants?
Moving on to clothing. Now this one might be self-evident, but it kind of gets lost in our transition coming here. We don't think about just how important this is. So for myself, the biggest thing that I had to consider before coming, if you're gonna be here for a little while, is shoes. I cannot buy shoes in Japan, or otherwise I have to search far and wide to find anything that's gonna fit on my feet. I got a size 11, which is big enough, but not even huge by my country's standards. It's massive here in Japan, and I had a hell of a time trying to find something. I usually just order off of Amazon. And where this is probably a problem magnified for men, I hear it's an issue for women as well. I couldn't describe the specifics, but it's definitely something to consider. So before you come to Japan, think about, do I have everything that fits me? Do I need to replace something now that's getting old? Because if you don't when you get here, you might find yourself out of luck and having to, like I did, search far and wide for something that fits. So clothing, think about that sizing before you arrive. That's number 6.
That's right, baby. I just bought this truck straight cash. And I got enough cigarettes to last me and my family for the rest of our lives.
Let's save you a little bit of money. When you first come to Japan and you're living here, or you're here for any kind of extended stay, you're gonna need to buy odds and ends. And without knowing the lay of the land and the different shops that are available to you, you might go to some unnecessarily expensive location to buy the fundamental things that you need in your everyday life. Let me solve that problem for you and share you a store name. It's called Daiso. So Daiso is kind of the mega dollar store that you can find in Japan, and you'll find it all over the place. And if you're furnishing a house, maybe not literally for the furniture, but for all other things that you might need, you'll find everything at Daiso, and you'll find it for really, really cheap. Find it at a steal, and you can save yourself tons of money. So write down Daiso when you're thinking of those basic things that you need for your house, but you don't want to spend a ton of cash to get them. That is number 7.
I'm rich, biatch!
Cash money, paper, something that in Western cultures we don't so much use anymore. When I'm back in Canada, what's going on there is the debit culture, and now most recently you can do tap debit. Japan is still a very cash-driven culture. You will see people using something like a credit card, but almost never debit card usage. And this leads to a little bit of misunderstanding, where if I were to go into a store in Canada and I paid with a $100 bill, I might get flat out rejected. But here in Japan, that's totally acceptable, and people don't bat an eye because that's just the way that things are done here. So don't worry so much about using big bills in stores. Nobody's gonna fault you for it, and it's actually how things are kind of done. And it'll make up for the fact that you don't have a debit card to use, and if you're visiting, or if you haven't lived here for a long time, you don't yet have a Visa, MasterCard, something like that. So don't worry about breaking those big bills. That's number 8.
Ice on the fringe is so damn frosty, the people like,
Damn, that's a cold-ass honky.
All right, with number 9, we're back to saving you a little bit more money again. So if you're here for an extended stay, if you're living in Japan, I already talked about how you could save money on those very basic items in your house, things that can be covered by the kind of 100 yen, $1 cost. But of course, you're gonna need to buy other things that are a little bit bigger. You're gonna need to buy a fridge, you're gonna need to buy a heater, you're gonna need to buy a stove. Now, if you didn't know better, you would probably go in and buy all these brand new. But I would highly recommend, if you're in Japan, checking out all the thrift stores. So these are awesome for 2 reasons. One, obviously things in thrift stores are gonna be a lot cheaper than buying them all brand new. But the second factor, I would say, is a cultural one. Japanese people, on average, take far greater care of the things that they own, and when they eventually retire them, they retire them in far better condition than anything I'd ever seen in Canada. So when you go into a thrift store, chances are when you buy that Easy Bake Oven, you're gonna get it in amazing condition and you're gonna save all that money because it's secondhand. So that's the next level of savings. Daiso and thrift stores. Both of these are gold mines in Japan. That is number 9.
You want to be a star, don't you? Then take it off!
So far we've been discussing things that have to do with people who are here for an extended period of time or maybe a short period of time. But I did want to put in one tip or one reflection on something that is important for people who intend to actually live here. And this has to do with visas and visa limitations. So if you have something like I have, which is an instructor visa, you're under the impression that you can't do any other work than the instructing that you would do in your schools. But what I found out, little pro tip, is that many of these modeling agencies, acting agencies in Japan, I've discovered can sponsor an amendment to your work visa which would actually allow you to work for them at the same time while fulfilling your other duties that you have with the initial visa that you've gotten. And this can be really, really cool because it means that you can be drawn in a little bit of that extra cash, that cash money, that paper, while you're doing your main job. And when Japan can at times be an expensive country, this is really, really useful. So that is number 10. There it is. That's my top 10 things that I wish I'd known before coming to live in Japan. So again, are you the Grandmaster Weeboo? How did you do? How did you test? Did you know them all? Did you know a few? Let me know how you did in the comments down below. And if you have a little pro tip that I did not include in this video, put that down there as well, because we're all learning and we can all help each other, and that's really, really cool. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you checking it out. Many, many more to come, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.